Hello and welcome to the DecisionWise Engaging People podcast. My name is Justin Warner and I will be the host of today's podcast. Today, I'm joining the familiar voice of DecisionWise, one of our senior consultants and regular podcast host, Charles Rogel. As I mentioned, Charles is the regular host of this podcast, and because it's not very much fun to interview yourself, Charles invited me to be with him today. So Charles, thank you for letting me be here with you today.
Thanks, Justin. It is it's quite intimidating to be on the other side of the microphone now and have this opportunity.
That's great. Well, Charles, as I mentioned, I'm really excited to be with you here today because many of you might not know, but Charles has been extremely instrumental in getting DecisionWise to where it is today. He literally has been the voice of DecisionWise for over 15 years, and so it's really exciting to get to know more about Charles Rogel. And I, like the rest of the employees here at DecisionWise, have the privilege of building upon what Charles has created and what he continues to create. So, Charles, it's great to be here. So, you've been with DecisionWise for over 15 years. Why don't you go ahead and kind of give us the genesis? Tell us a little bit about how it started and your history with coming to DecisionWise.
So this goes way back in time.
Right after Dirt was created.
Yeah, right. So it's interesting. My connection with DecisionWise started actually way back in 1997 1995. When I started my MBA program at BYU, and that's when I ran into our CEO, Tracy Malett. And that's where we first met. We actually met on the first day of orientation. We sat at the same table for lunch, and we ended up being on the same kind of group together, a study group, throughout the whole 2 years that we worked together. And so we had a lot of fun. And then we kind of bumped into each other thereafter in terms of different work opportunities and careers. So Tracy was always kind of in HR, OD, that kind of stuff. And I was always I started off in project management. So I started off in a call center way back in the day, doing project management. And I did that for about 6 years. I migrated over to sales. I called myself kind of an accidental salesperson. I fell into it. There was an opportunity. I decided to pursue it. And so I did that for a number of years, probably 6 or 7 more years in K-12 education technology, so sales and marketing in that realm. And so that was very interesting, working with schools in the education field, learned a lot as I worked there. And then I reconnected with Tracy after that. So this is probably 10 or 12 years later at DecisionWise. He had joined as a partner. They were looking for a salesperson. There was only 5 people in the organization way back then. We were really kind of small, doing kind of boutique consulting with clients around the country. And so I came on, and at that point we were really starting a focus to kind of productize our offerings more. We kind of did customized work, basically anything for everyone, depending upon the needs that they have. That was kind of in our wheelhouse. And so that was quite a fun experience back in the day. We really started solidifying our offerings around surveys, employee surveys, engagement surveys, 360 surveys. And so during that time, those 15 years, I've been involved in a variety of different roles, from project management to sales to marketing. And now I've kind of settled into this consulting role, which I found very enjoyable. It's been interesting because now I see all the products that we've developed over many years kind of being implemented and used with our clients, and it's been a lot of fun.
That's great. And Charles, I think that's what makes it you unique, is that you've seen the evolution of these products,
yeah.
Right? You've seen from, we always talk about the DecisionWise has seen customer satisfaction or client satisfaction, employee satisfaction type surveys to culture surveys and engagement surveys, and you've seen the whole evolution. You've seen the evolution of 360-degree feedback and training and development, and you've been on all of that and instrumental in helping with the DecisionWise magic model. And so you are uniquely qualified to talk about with our clients how these elements are approached within the organization. So maybe talk about that just a little bit. What is your approach now that as a consultant and with your background, what is your approach when you work with clients in helping them down their paths?
Yeah, so it's been interesting because it's definitely been a big change as I've migrated into this consulting role. from being kind of more theoretical to actually kind of saying, okay, well, what are we finding in the results and how does it work? I've always kind of been a data-driven kind of guy, so it's easy for me. Like, I'm real comfortable working in a spreadsheet, sorting data, looking for patterns, and kind of coming up with trends that I'm seeing. And so my approach, especially looking at employee engagement survey results, is really digging into the data, looking at different insights, kind of letting it take me to where I'm seeing either opportunities or strengths for an organization, and then helping to quantify that through other data pieces, whether that's more analytics that we do, which I'm not as strong in, so it's nice that we have statisticians and other people that can help me with this stuff. But I can see patterns pretty easily in the data, and it helps me to kind of come up with themes. But I really rely on what the data is saying to make some recommendations. And so the other thing I've recognized, especially working with clients, is they kind of all have, they're all in different stages. They all have different appetites when it comes to change and what they want to do with results. Are all kind of in different stages. And so I always try to analyze where they're at, how much effort and energy they have around this, their people, employee engagement, and then where we can go. What's the next logical step for them to be at that's kind of a reasonable goal for them to achieve. One of the things I've really found enjoying, so a lot of my work focuses on, employee engagement survey results, consulting on the data thereafter, but also doing a lot of work on 360-degree feedback, leadership development, competency development with clients. And so you're really understanding, what is important for leaders in our organization to excel, identifying those competencies, behaviors, and then creating a survey that really measures those accurately. And the other thing that's been nice to rely on is just the context that I've found from other client experiences over the past 15 years. So really seeing what the best in class are doing, what those just starting out are doing, the different needs that clients have, whether it's around retaining our employees or creating a great work environment or both. So kind of bringing that into play as we're working with clients and giving them some context in terms of their results.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So Charles, with the clients that you've been working with, and you have this experience to be able to share with them, and as you alluded to, they're at different levels of maturity in terms of where they are as an organization. Just really quick, I'm curious, what has been most fulfilling for you over the last little while as you've been working with clients, and you get to be able to share that expertise and knowledge with them? DecisionWise is a full-service organization, and we've chosen to be full service because we believe that there's value in the consulting client relationship with these results. So I'm curious, from your standpoint, what value have you seen, and what joy do you get out of that as well?
Yeah, so I was thinking about a few kind of client case studies and fun things that I've been able to work on over the past couple of years. One has been working with a client to do kind of an analysis on attrition, so those folks that have left over the past couple of years. So we were working with a client that works with other utilities across the country, and we were looking at the results of those employees that left voluntarily during the previous year. And so we had conducted their employee engagement survey the year before. We were able to identify, they gave us a list of people that left. We can identify who they are confidentially. We always kind of, like we say, we always roll up the results. We're not identifying anyone uniquely. But we took this data, about 100 people, and compared it to the results. And so we were able to see the employee engagement survey results from the 100 people that left this last year, and tie it to, and then look at the how they responded to questions, kind of the profile of those individuals. And what we found is that, for the most part, these were short tenured workers within the past, that started within the past year or two, that worked out in the field. And when we looked at the results, we're always curious, well, is it because of bad management? Did they have a bad leader? Well, they had really great, the results showed they had a really great relationship with their managers. So that old saying where people don't leave companies, they leave managers, wasn't true in this case. But what we found is that when we looked at other questions, it turned out to be more about job fit. So it didn't really align with their initial expectations. They didn't like the work that they were doing. It wasn't what they thought it was when they originally signed up for. So the outcome of that was to really say, hey, you need to focus on the onboarding experience, really the interviewing process, making sure you're aligned and that people know what's required in the job. but also focus on those new employees, making sure they're fitting in, they're finding enjoyment in their work. Another one that was kind of frustrating was presenting the employee engagement results to an organization, and we get through the entire presentation, and they were somewhat involved in asking questions, but then we find out that they weren't really ready to proceed with any changes from the survey. They had about 9 other higher priorities for the year. We were presenting as part of the executive kind of retreat that they were doing. And so after they had kind of listened to our presentation and thought about all the other initiatives they had, they said, well, our scores are okay this year. We're going to have to postpone, our engagement or our people priorities until next year. Mm-hmm. And so we're like, great, we did all this work, delivered all this work, thought we had some great insights to share and themes and opportunities, but they weren't biting on it. And that's fine. Some people just aren't at that stage yet. And so word of advice to HR people out there, just make sure you have buy-in for action around your results with your executive team before you do a survey. And then another one where I saw really great results for an organization, had a really strong CEO, very personable. Most people were very connected to him. He had kind of formed relationships with most people in the organization. And so a very dynamic guy. And so he had influenced a lot of the great scores we saw around communication and feeling like people were cared about in the organization. But the challenge for this organization was that he was retiring in the next 2 years, and there's a little bit of uneasiness, lack of clarity about the future. So who's going to be the new CEO? Will the culture change dramatically? And so we saw that appearing in their employee engagement survey results. And it ended up being kind of one of the themes. So how do we kind of make this transition smoothly? How do we communicate, keep people bought in? We want to keep our key people that are maybe closely aligned with the CEO so that we can maintain our momentum. So that was another interesting finding.
Oh, that's great. Charles, in the beginning, we talked a little bit about you have, you put a focus on employee engagement, but you also do a lot with 360-degree feedback and our training.
Yeah.
Specifically our engagement magic training.
Yeah.
And so why don't we take just a little bit and have you talk about your philosophy on engagement magic, leadership, and how that all ties together, because I think you have some great insights into how that all 3 of those areas, how they tie together.
Yeah, it's funny. There's so much overlap, especially as we look at results. And so I'm always looking at engagement results, and there's always a section about the leadership component, the relationship with their supervisor and their behaviors. And those behaviors that we measure on an engagement survey are very translatable to a 360 assessment, so we're able to kind of do that more in-depth with leadership teams, kind of create the framework that that managers need to have in order to know what's expected of them in terms of good leadership. And so a lot of times when we see bad engagement results, I'm seeing poor manager scores, which leads to an initiative around training and development for managers. Sometimes we do engagement surveys, and the outcome is that, hey, managers don't even know anything about engagement. And so there's this necessity to train them around how I can influence employee engagement on my team, how my team experiences engagement in their jobs. And that's where our magic training comes into play. So it's been a lot of fun to work on the magic training, tweak it, update it, deliver it to clients, train clients on how to deliver it internally, because they take it and then they kind of put their spin on it and align it with their own goals and values. And it really becomes a real powerful tool for them to help managers, give them the tools they need to engage their teams. And so when I think about how this all interacts, definitely leadership and engagement are tightly tied together. As an HR team, as you're thinking about these solutions, these ideas, you really need to have buy-in from your senior leadership team. So the more buy-in you have, support you have there, the more successful that you'll be. It's still worth it to do it, even if that first year they're somewhat on the fence. What we find is they gradually buy in, see the value, and it might take multiple years to kind of get them up to speed, but it's definitely worth it. It makes a difference. And in that case, or segue to that, it is a progressive process. So don't expect to change the whole organization in 1 year. You're kind of steering a big ship here, so make sure you build in some time to do so. And then sometimes I just say, the simple thing, especially as we look at results for an organization, there might be 5 opportunities they have around creating more meaning or focusing on leadership development or communication. And it might seem overwhelming, but just do one of those things. Do something, because if you work on one thing, all the results go up the next year, depending upon what you choose. Just put an emphasis on something. And then for leadership overall, as I kind of think about this overall philosophy, it's really about creating clear expectations and then being consistent and holding leaders accountable to those expectations. I talk to so many leaders where they kind of get frustrated for lack of clarity around priorities in the organization. Everything's important. Here's a new priority you guys need to focus on. They're trying to do their day jobs and really get their people to perform. And so if they're getting pulled in multiple directions, if they find that it's hard to make decisions because so many people are involved, it just gets frustrating, kind of compounds the number of or the amount of work that they need to do. So leaders just want real good clarity, real clear expectations about what's expected of them. And also, in a sense, they're just like, just tell me what to do. What do you want me to do, and I'll do it, in terms of, and then kind of fitting it into their workload. So they're real simple about it and want to do the right thing as well. So they're real usually enthused to do things that they feel will really help the team out and the company out as well.
That's great. Well, Charles, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. Thank you for letting me join you today in this podcast. It's been great to get to know more about you and your experience here at DecisionWise and the great work that you've been doing for over the last 15 years.
Thanks, Justin. It's been fun.